Oh. Right. Oh boy. Oh boy. Berserker. Oh man, he is. Music. Thor's has seen it before, clearly, and the effects of it. Yep, as expected. He's quite effective. The Troll of Yom. No, not yet. Oh, here comes Bjorn. Look at that. They've got some on the cliff though, right? Askelad is excited about this. Like, he legitimately seemed excited about that. Let him do his thing, man. This, I knew this problem, man. Challenge him to a duel, right? There it is. The men, all of them are listening. Now then, he's certainly seen just how impressive Thor's is. Yes, yet he's accepted it, meaning he's quite good himself then. He's just put it together. He made sure to ask. Whoa, he's quick. Whoa. Whoa. Looks like Sergio Ramos. Oh, I'm about to get a damn good fight. Oh, he thought he's about to land a killing blow. Or the finishing blow. See, he's interested. He's impressed. I'm surprised he hasn't asked them or asked him to join, and he'll let the rest go. The challenge excites this man. Whoa, 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 whoa. And he'll strike back. Oh, he'll see this and they'll attack before he gives any signal. He wants to go hand to hand.
狙いが読めりゃ剣筋も読めるぜ。来た大振り。
Oh.
はまった。鼻から剣を折らせるつもりで全部こいつの筋書き通りか。なんてこった。この俺がいいように踊らされるとは。どうした。やれよ。
No, he doesn't do that.
必要はない。降参すると言え。それでいい。
俺は狩猟だぜ。手下の前でそれだけは言えねえな。
He's gonna find out. I think he's trying to.
どうしたやれよ。俺を殺さん限りこの決闘は終わらんぞ。
That's the one thing he is not going to do here.
本当に強いなトールズ。あんたなら一軍の大将も務まる。だがなぜだね。それほどの腕がありながら15年もアイスランドに。
Oh, he's trying to dig
ない
here.
ないと思わんか。
思わん。
He's intrigued by Thor's,
こ
that's
ん
for
なも
sure.
のに頼らざるを得んのは俺が未熟だからだ。本当の戦士には剣などいらぬ。
Whoa.
トールズあんた俺たちの狩猟にならんか。
Oh, there it is. I think he means it. I don't think this is a trick. He's seen an incredible man today.
なんちってね。おいおい、誰も笑わねえな。冗談だよ。
Yeah, but that look at the end there. Askelad knows he's not gonna do it though.
俺の勝ちだ。
どっちでもいいさ。俺の狙いはあんたの弾だ。
分かってる。
承知した。この決闘はあんたの勝ちだ。
アシュラット、この勝負俺の勝ちだ。戦士の約束をたがえるなよ。
分かっている。我が先祖アルトリウスの名にかけて速やかに兵を引こ
う。俺の首をヨウムの狩猟シグバルディに届けてくれ。召集を嫌って行方をくらましたと誤解され
He'll
た。
go in, yeah, he'll go to the village.
村が報復を受ける。
お前という男は
よかった。とりあえず。
Oh man.
クソガキめが今日から命を大事にしやがれ。トールズに感謝するんだな。てめえらクソガキ100人でも釣りの苦しだ。
Did he just die there, standing up? Head held high? A lot of tough lessons ahead. He's still young. Yeah. A lot of rage.
昭和28名が死者はいない？一人もがバカな。
There it is. Vengeance. Well, oh boy, so how did Leaf let this happen though? There it is, the revenge plot. Yeah, he's not just a kid, he's Thor's kid. No, he's not gonna. Okay, interesting. Right then, folks. That right there, that's an all-timer. As far as anime episodes go, or, a single episode of anime goes, that is right up there as one of the best I've ever seen, right? Out of my limited experience with anime, though, I am expanding my horizons as fast as I can, right? But yeah, that has to be in the top 5. I've seen Shingeki, I've seen One Piece, I've seen Death Note, this now, Fullmetal Alchemist. Though Fullmetal Alchemist is still, much too early. Though, of course, this is as well. But, that's how strong this episode was, man. 4th episode of this series, and it's, I don't think it's an overreaction to call it a masterpiece of an episode, a standalone episode. And, not just for the reasons of, not just because of the things that transpired in this episode alone. Essentially also because of how important this episode is for the rest of the series. Like, it essentially just provided a roadmap for the rest of the series, or at least the rest of this arc, right? It finally opened up the trajectory that this series is heading towards now. Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of right there now, right? This allowed for this next phase of the story to really open up, at least in my opinion. To me, it appears that, the long-term arc, the character arc and the story arc is now, clear to see. And it's interesting because, again, of course, much to talk about, much to, dissect. But, I mean, it's clear to see that the focus is going to be Askelad, his men, and Thorfinn, right? That's going to be the primary focus of this because, of course, Thorfinn has to be the focus. And Thorfinn, at this point in time, is essentially a tag-along with Askelad's group. And, I've kind of landed on Askelad. It was kind of like Ashlad, Askelad. I've kind of done like the hybrid, Askelad. I think that sounds about right to me. A few people told me, the pronunciation is essentially, the Japanese pronunciation of it is a bit different than, or, a Japanese voice actor pronouncing it is a bit different than the actual pronunciation of it, perhaps. But, Ashkelad is the one that sounds about right to me, so I'll probably stick with that. But yeah, it appears that this is going to be the focus of this next arc. And, now I feel like it is going to slow down a bit, right? You see this a lot in shows or stories. The first phase is kind of like it has its own, inciting incidents and progressions and a conclusion, right? And then that kind of sets it up nicely, right? All the different tangents and the trajectory the story is about to head into. Now I think it's going to slow down because now I think the long-term story arc, the character arc is about to take off, right? This was the conclusion of the Thor's arc, essentially, right? And as expected, his death is going to play a major part in Thorfinn's character arc. It's essentially set his character arc into motion. And, I was dreading this moment, but I think it was kind of clear to see that it is heading towards this conclusion for Thor's. And I think Thor's as a character within the story also saw that, he tried, if he beats him fair and square, maybe he'll back off. But again, in that sense, you could also take the angle of these men, right? Askelad's men, because Askelad is a different entity from his men, or a different individual from his men. More on that later. But his men, you could totally see them thinking that, Thor is as strong as he might be, as incredible as he might be. Perhaps he was a bit naive, right? In their eyes, at least, because yeah, they had a job to do. Askelad had a job to do, and at one point it became clear to Thor is that okay. Floki put him up to this. Of course, that's going to play a major part because Thorfinn has heard Floki now, right? That's going to be in the back of his mind, right? As he grows older and as he goes through these experiences, and they're not going to be easy experiences. I don't think so. The School of Hard Knocks. The world is cruel, and he's going to find out, right? It's going to beat him down. It's going to push him down to the ground over and over again. But he's going to have to stand up. Every time it knocks him over, Thorfinn's going to have to stand up. It's going to be incredibly tough. The journey ahead of him is a tough one, right? But I think he'll hang in there. And, it's going to make for quite an intriguing character arc and a story arc. And, Thorfinn's one character that's, of course, I'm excited about his character arc. And, I kind of mentioned that right from the beginning, right? Episode 1, that, the real long-term character arc of substance is Thorfinn, given his age, the blank canvas. He has so much to learn. You see at the end there, as he's crying, right? As he's hiding in their ship or in their boat. They already set that up, right? Him sneaking into a boat and then, revealing himself. He's done it once again. Though, of course, the occasion is not as happy as it was last time, for him at least. Now, it'll be interesting to see how this happened. I guess Leif kind of lost track of him in all the commotion because I'm sure, these men, Askelad's men are not, they're not nice people per se, right? I mean, they're not, and I'm speaking of his men. Askelad is a different case, and, I'm quite excited. I am quite excited about this character, and, these are the types of characters that really excite me. You need these types of characters, man. These are the types of characters that are intriguing, right? And compelling. And I've seen so many signs of that already just in this episode, it just kind of blew it all open, right? It really showed you how intriguing this character could be and has a potential to be. But even earlier on, first appearances, right? And then his conversation with Floki, it already set up that, okay, there's a lot of substance to this character. But this episode just blew that lid right open. And I'm quite excited about this character and his character arc and his role in Thorfinn's character arc and his progression, his development, because I do think it is going to play a part in his development. You see at the end there, the one guy, one of the brothers asked him, should we just toss him over? He could have said yes, right, and get rid of this problem, this lingering problem, right, of a child. Who has time for a child, right? They're a mercenary group, right? They're hard men. Yet he said, nah, leave him. He'll die soon enough, right? Now, he might actually believe that, but I think he also feels that he wants to see how this child, Thor's child, interested in seeing how Thor's child handles this, or if he's able to handle this. Can he come through this? Can he get through this phase, right? So I firmly believe, this is about to turn into like a mentor type role for Askelad. Of course, in the early stages, there's going to be that animosity. I mean, that animosity is going to remain, perhaps for the entire character arc of Thorfinn's character arc. But I think it's clear to see the direction this is heading into, and that's the reason I said it just kind of it revealed the roadmap for the series, right? This is Thorfinn's character arc. He's going to be part of this group, right? Askelad's group. I had a distinct feeling of Mifune's character from Seven Samurai, right? The tag-along, and how he persisted, right? He just kept along. He kept following the group. And, again, this group is not as wholesome as the Seven Samurai group. Those are, yes, they were Ronin, but, really likable men. Not to say that, Askelad isn't likable. Yes, he's he's an interesting and compelling character, but I think he is a likable character as well. You don't have to be a completely, nice person, and someone like Thor's to be likable. Of course, Thor's is incredibly likable, right? It made me shed my first tears of the anime, right? Really early on in the series. That's the impact this character had on me just within these 4 episodes. That's how impactful his characterization was. Right, brought me to tears, man, to see him like that. Even though I anticipated that, yeah, he's going to die most likely, and that is going to be the trigger to Thorfinn's long-term character arc. Yet it still brought me to tears, man. It was heartbreaking. Yeah, he's an incredible man. He's an incredible character, right? I'll get into that, but going back to Askelad, yes, a likable character, but then circling right back to Seven Samurai. Remember the tag along? At first, they were kind of just like, oh, is he still following us? And then slowly, they started kind of warming up to him. They all realized the potential, and they all realized, oh, he's persistent, right? He keeps at it. I'm getting the same feeling here. The same type of thing could play out here, right? That slowly, slowly these men could start to accept Thorfinn. And I don't mean that they'll accept Thorfinn in the sense that, oh, he's one of us, because Thorfinn is never going to, consider himself one of them. But, I think it's clear to see that he is going to be part of this group. And that presents an interesting dynamic for sure. And, that's the reason I think Askelad is right there to be the perfect mentor. It's not going to be a pleasant experience. Like I said, the School of Hard Knocks. The world is going to push him down. And, some of these lessons are going to come from Askelad himself and his men, right? So, yeah, it's not going to be a pleasant experience, they're not, it's not going to be like his father, Askelad is not going to be gentle with Thor's, I think Askelad probably sees that, this kid has a lot of rage, right? Now, he didn't react quite like the other men, but you see the other men are a bit perplexed by this, right? To see this kind of rage and anger and hate and, vengeance in the eyes of a child this young, 6 years old. That has to be kept in mind here. Though I still have to apply some of my thoughts, regardless of him being a 6-year-old. If I don't apply those thoughts, there's nothing much to talk about then, right? But I think that has to be kept in mind here, that he is a 6-year-old. But yeah, Askelad, yeah, I could totally see Askelad and Thorfinn developing a type of relationship, right? In the sense that, Thorfinn's always going to have him in his mind as the enemy, right? His target. And in that sense, that lesson of you have no enemies. Yeah, it was clear that Thorfinn is not going to be able to understand any of the lessons Thor's gave him, right? Again, in part because he's just so young, and it's just going to take time. It's going to take a few years of hard knocks and experiences to, finally circle back and finally understand the things his father was trying to teach him. And I do think he'll get to that point. And I do believe this is a positive change arc that just set into motion. But, it's going to take some time. Right? It's going to take some time before he understands those lessons, right? Other experiences are going to, help him understand his father's lesson. Askelad might help him understand his father's lesson. He might take a few, he might have a different approach, but I think, he is going to play a part. And, in that sense, if this entire character arc is just Thorfinn being a tag-along with this group of men in Askelad, he could learn more from Askelad than he did from his father, right? He might spend more of his years with this man, this really interesting man, right? This man that actually, you could see that he comprehends the type of person Thor's is. And you see, he's still deep in thought in his boat, in his ship, boat, longboat. The other men, they recognize that, that was a strong fighter, a strong man, incredible man. But, they defeated him and, they move on. But, Askelad is still there, wrapped up, deep in thought, thinking back to the experience he just had, once in a lifetime type run-in with an incredible man. And you see that it was really quick. It was almost instantaneous. He saw that he's in the presence of someone special, right? And he thought he made the right choice to make this trip, right? So really early on, you see he was quite excited about this prospect, and it lived up to all of his expectations, or it lived up to the curiosity, right? And then some, because one of the things, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, it's just so airtight in every aspect of the production, the animation, the score. Once again, oh, it's so good, man. It really is. Especially, during that duel, Askelad against Thor's. I mean, the duel itself, the animation, the choreography, the camera movements throughout this episode. Oh, beautiful, man. But yeah, speaking of, animation and the drawing, there's so many fantastic subtle moments here, right? As Askelad reacts to things Thor's is saying, right? And I think you can infer quite a bit from these subtle movements of his face and his eyes, his eyebrows even, right? His reaction to these moments. And I feel like in a group setting, something like that could be missed, right? If, say you have a large group, something that subtle could be missed if you're not fully dialed in. But yeah, I think it's so clear to see here that this is an individual he respects. He almost instantaneously had respect for this man and how he carries himself and the things he represents, even though, he might not be in line with how Thor's does things. He has I think it's fair to say that he had an immense amount of respect for him. So much so that there's this really incredible moment that Askelad himself, he asked him, why don't you become our leader, right? That's a massive moment, especially for a character like Askelad, right? So he had the humility to actually put that notion out there in front of his men. Yes, later he backtracked and tried to, just laugh it off as a joke, even though, his men are still a bit confused about this, and, Bjorn was really annoyed about this, but it wasn't a joke. He was being serious about that. And his reaction there, again, subtle, as Thor's doesn't reply, but, Ashkelad's reaction there is quite telling, right? You see that he knows this is a reality that cannot exist. You see there's a bit of disappointment, right? A bit of sadness that he knows the next steps. He knows that, on this day he is going to have to kill this man. Or at least you get the feeling that Askelad hates the notion that he does have to kill this man, this incredible man, right? And, you see the effect he's had on him in just a short amount of time, right? Just this one encounter. You see Ari kind of, recklessly lunge at him, and, this agitated Askelad, right? He was annoyed that, this young person, young adult, is so recklessly, so needlessly, and so foolishly about to put his life at risk after Thor's has done something incredible for all of them, giving up his life for them. So that agitated him, right? He wanted this young adult to be more appreciative of Thor's and the incredible gesture, right? So yeah, I love that he had respect for this man, right? And it lingered in his mind. Even on that trip back, you see he's thinking back to his men, or one of his men telling him that no, not a single death. And that is another thing that just blew his mind, right? So Thorfinn can't comprehend the type of man his father really is at this point in time. He'll come to appreciate that later, with age, with experience. But this man, Askelad, is an intelligent individual, and he certainly comprehends the type of man Thor's was, right? He even said, right, it might have seemed like a joking comment, but he said, I like smart men. And, you get that, or, I got that feeling really early on that this is a really clever, intelligent individual that is kind of by himself in this group of men, right? You see that he certainly does have to lower himself to their level, right, to be their leader. But he understands them. He certainly understands these men inside and out. But you see, coming across a man like Thor's, that was an an exciting experience for him. That was an incredible experience for him, right? An eye-opening one as well, I think, because I think his run-in with Thor's is also going to, perhaps play a part in Ashkelad's character arc, maybe, right? And also it is going to play a part in, his potential relationship with his son, Thorfinn. Sorry, not, you know what I mean. I mean, Thor's son. But yeah, my mind kind of accidentally goes there, right? Because I could see that happening. I could see that mentor relationship. here. A father figure relationship even, because he's about to, or they've just set it off that he might be spending years with Askelad and these men. But yeah, I don't want to repeat a lot of the things I said in the last few discussions, but it certainly applies to this, right? And I started to apply a lot of those things because it was becoming really clear that Thorfinn's arc is going to begin once his father dies, or it's going to set that into motion, and the trajectory his character arc is about to head into. So yeah, a lot of those things certainly come into play now, a lot of those discussion points. But yeah, in terms of how things might progress, in the next few episodes, I could see the immediate continuation of this plot point, right? But at some point, it is going to need, I think, some sort of time skip, a few years maybe, right? Because again, he's quite young, so they're going to have to, have some sort of passage of time to show us. And again, some of these first few interactions he's going to have with Askelad and his men, they're going to be rough. They are, he's a 6-year-old. He'll have that naive notion that I'm going to go at him right away. Right, he'll I'm sure he'll come up to him at some point and he'll challenge him to a duel. I'm going to avenge my father. He's got that rage against the world moment at the present time, right? Rage against the killer, right? The murderer of his father in his mind. But I think after a few of those initial rough moments, yeah, they've made it clear that he's not just going to abandon his goal, right? That was as definitive as it gets. I'm going to kill you. The men are quite perplexed by a 6-year-old having this kind of devotion and, anger and fire within him. And I'm sure Askelad, even though he didn't react to it, I'm sure he found that a bit interesting as well. And maybe he was even thinking of, potentially helping this young child channel some of that anger, right? Potentially, utilizing this individual, right? Because he sees potential there, perhaps. And it's maybe it's not an obligation thing, but you see that Thor's had an impact on Askelad, right? So much so that I could see him feeling a sense of again, not obligation, because, I don't think he's the type of man who feels that he's going to be obligated to take care of Thorfinn or anything, because I don't think he is going to take care of him like a father, like a Thor's. But I think he feels like, out of respect for Thor's and the type of man he was, the incredible man he was, he might kind of, lend a hand, in the development of this child, teach him things, right? Put him on a path, perhaps help him channel that anger, maybe. For the foreseeable future, yes, Thorfinn's goal is always going to be, to kill that man, right? Kill that man, get strong, kill that man, because at this point, of course, he can't do anything about it, and that's going to frustrate him, of course, to be a 6-year-old, and, know that you're just not strong enough to do anything about it. The only thing you can do is grow, learn from experiences, and those experiences are going to come, from within this group, right? He's not going to abandon them. He's going to keep chasing them, right? He's going to keep chasing Askelad. Sooner or later, I think he's just going to be part of that group. I mean, it's going to be complicated, no doubt about it. But I think sooner or later, as time passes, as they kind of have run-ins, sooner or later he is going to, become part of that group, right? And at the same time have the goal of ultimately, killing Askelad, right? Though, if you really let's really think about it down the line, could that change? That all depends. I certainly feel that this is the beginning of a positive change arc, but there's a long road ahead. Like I said, a lot of tough lessons ahead. He's still quite naive. He's still quite young. But, I could even see maybe down the line, this relationship potentially where, it's kind of like, they have kind of, warmed up to each other maybe, or they have kind of developed some sort of respect for each other maybe. Askelad and Thorfinn, that is. And I'm talking about, really far down the line, and that's the reason I, mentioned that there might be a need for a time skip to show the passage of time and how Thorfinn has grown. Because if he is going to be part of that group, it has to be an older Thorfinn that has some experience. And, I'm not speaking of as old as Thor's, just perhaps in his teenage years, right? Early teenager years, perhaps. So he could actually, function in a group, right? And utilize some of the things he might pick up and learn from Askelad and his men even. So like I mentioned, ultimately I do think this is going to end up being a positive change arc. That, at some point he is going to understand the things his father was trying to teach him. But, there's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations, of course, he's going to feel, levels of personal unfulfillment, right? And denial, for sure, of course, right? A lot of these things are going to make him question himself, right? And the world around him. I mean, Thorfinn is certainly going to be forced to challenge his beliefs, right? About himself and his beliefs about the world around him. Again, at this point in time, he's 6 years old, so a lot of his thought process is going to, be all about the perceived solution rather than the actual solution. So at this moment in time, he's firmly hell-bent on, avenging his father, and in order to do so, he has to kill Askelad. That notion of interior emptiness being solved through exterior actions, right? And those are usually, physical, external actions. And, in this case, killing Askelad, that is the external goal in mind, right? Or the physical act in mind. But, I keep saying it's going to be a tough road ahead. At some point he is going to blame himself, or he is going to come to the realization that ultimately, him being there, it kind of did handicap his father, right? Of course, his father, would never blame him for this, but Thorfinn is going to, blame himself about this at some point. But, I am expecting that at some point that realization is going to set in. And of course, this might be really deep into the series or this arc. That realization moment is going to happen, I think. And that is going to allow him to, change the perception he has of himself and the world, right? And he is going to be able to understand the lessons, the important lessons his father tried to give him. But he was just much too young to, comprehend and understand. Right now, just the notion of a warrior not needing a sword is so foreign to him, right? It just doesn't compute. It just doesn't register in his mind. He can't even comprehend that notion. He's like, well, huh? But of course, that being said, at this point in time, he is essentially heading into the opposite direction, right? And I think I brought this point up, right, in one of my discussions. Might have been the second episode or the third episode. Unfortunately, his trajectory is going towards the opposite direction, right? Of everything his father doesn't want him to become, but he is going to become those things. You see, he's consumed by hate and anger and lust for vengeance right at the end there. It's consumed him. It's sunk its claws in there, right? So he's going to have to take the long road, right? I believe he is going to arrive at that realization at some point down the line, but, he's going to have to take a different route. He's going to have to see this side of it first before he ends up realizing his father's side of it, right? And how he saw these things, and how an incredible warrior such as him could have that kind of outlook, right? He's going to struggle. Thorfinn is going to struggle with how his father, did things as he slowly starts to, think about these things. And, in my first discussion for episode 1, I mentioned that, this story certainly believes in something. It certainly wants to, say something. You see again that, this essentially incredible warrior, a Viking essentially, is saying that, a true warrior doesn't need a sword, right? So once again, that's not something you would typically hear out of a Viking, right? But, also I mentioned Floki earlier, so that is also going to linger in his mind. So, that could come up. That could come up as a plot point, his run-ins with Floki perhaps. Because he knows Floki, he'll come to understand, I think, that Floki put this into motion as well, right? Again, much too young at the moment, but I think he'll start to realize these things. And again, I firmly believe Askelad is going to play a part in his growth and his development, and that's exciting. That's an exciting prospect. Speaking of Askelad, at the end there, near the conclusion, yeah, he let them go. He let them go as Thor's implored him to keep his word as a warrior, and he said, "I swear to my ancestor Artorius," right? Before he said my father Ulf and Odin, right? That one didn't really matter to him, did it? But this time he swore to his ancestor Artorius. I might be mispronouncing that, but yeah, this time you see that this one actually meant something to him, and he kept that promise, right? To let them go. It's not his fault that Thorfinn stuck on, but yeah, he did let them go, and of course, that's the other angle of this. Leif, yeah, as expected, he is going to be the one who's going to tell the story of Thor's and how, or the story of his final moments and the things he did, the incredible things he did for all of them, for his son. He'll take that story back, and he'll tell Helga, Yelva, and perhaps others, right? But it remains to be seen. I'm still not sure how this separation happened. I mean, clearly Thorfinn kind of snuck in the commotion. He snuck out or something. It'll be interesting to see how Leif handles this, or if he feels any responsibility. I mean, I think he is going to feel responsibility for Thorfinn, right, being out there. I feel like he's going to feel an obligation to Thor's for finding Thorfinn. So I could totally see him, taking that responsibility upon himself to go find Thorfinn, out of respect, out of obligation, for everything Thor's has done for them. But, circling back to his oath, I swear to my ancestor Artorius. Let's see how that plays out. I'm certainly keeping that in mind. And, another interesting thing here, his armor, right? You see, even Thorfinn, it seemed like a passing comment, but, it is. His armor is, it is different, so of course anything different is going to seem strange, but different in the sense that it actually even kind of looked like gladiator armor, right? It's distinct, right? It certainly stands out. So yeah, let's put a pin in that. Let's see how that plays out. I mean, I'm certainly not going to look that term up or that person up, Artorius, my ancestor Artorius, because it probably could be a real person from history, right? So no, certainly not looking anything up for this series, because there is that risk that a lot of this is based on historical individuals. So yes, it's history, but just because it's history doesn't mean I want to be spoiled on it, right? If it is part of this. But going back to Thor's, this man, oh my god, incredible, right? He's so efficient, so effective. Didn't kill a single person, but he knew how to render them useless, right? Without killing them or landing any killing blows. And you see Bjorn, dude's out here, looking like Broly, kind of like, Carlos Blanca from Street Fighter. Someone like Thor's who has this, effective technique and pinpoint accuracy. He was not going to be, bothered too much by this charging, hulking figure, right? Especially one that's just completely out of his mind at the moment, just, charging recklessly. And then, there's a lot of really cool subtle moments, like him throwing that paddle, right, to the one guy he just knocks into the water, right? Just gives him a nice hook or something, or, a nice right, sends him flying into the water, yet, the next frame you see the paddle fly. Great subtle moments. Again, it really shows you the type of person Thor's is. And of course, going back to the duel, Askelad and Thor's, oh my god, that was so good. And Askelad is quite good himself. He's swift, he's agile, he's quite seasoned himself, right? I love the camera movements. I love the choreography, the animation, the sound design, right, of the blade, of the swords, and just the footsteps, everything. Like I said, it is airtight, man, top to bottom. Of course, full of some beautiful imagery once again. And again, one of the standout frames is the one of him standing there, right? Looking up to the sky. I mean, his eyes are closed, but full of arrows. Thorfinn's on the floor. That frame is just beautiful. It's a stunning frame, man. Oh, I think that's going to be a bit of a reoccurrence, right? Every episode, I'm sure I'm going to have my mind blown by a lot of these frames. And, because of that reason, I do kind of want to check out the manga as well at some point, down the line, once I've seen the show or the anime. Because I really do get the feeling that the drawing in the manga must be spectacular as well. So yeah, it's a goodbye to Thor's a fantastic character, right? Impactful character. And I've said that since episode 1. He's had quite a major impact. And, he's the type of character who's going to have an impact for the rest of the series, right? His influence is going to play a part for the rest of the series, I think, much like Ned Stark, right? That's why I felt like a strong parallel to Ned Stark. I feel like, Thor is going to live on forever, right? His influence is going to live on forever. And, in that sense, that fight itself also kind of reminded me of Jaime Lannister against Ned Stark, right? In season 1 of Game of Thrones. And, speaking of Game of Thrones, another parallel I see here is kind of like the Hound and Arya, right? Arya hated the Hound. She certainly hated the Hound. She wanted to kill the Hound. The Hound was on her list. So, I could see a similar relationship here. I could see a similar relationship developing here. Askelad and Thorfinn. Still early days, but, I certainly feel like he's going to be with this group or following this group. He's not going to just abandon that. And it's presented a lot of exciting prospects here. One of the most exciting one being Askelad, this character Askelad. I'm really looking forward to learning more about this character. Right, it certainly feels like a compelling and fascinating character that has a lot of layers. Right, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Askelad. And his role in Thorfinn's development and character arc. But yeah, that's about it for this one. Incredible episode, so if you enjoyed it and if you enjoyed my post-episode portion, consider dropping a like, right? That really helps out the channel, and it helps the channel grow, right? And it helps other fans, other supporters of this anime, find this potentially. Consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in full length for this, or perhaps even early access to the next episode right now, consider checking out the Patreon page. Once again, it's only an option for anyone who's interested in content beyond the scheduled content, right? Some of the perks of being a supporter on Patreon. If you are interested, check out the pinned comment. Check out the description. Both of those have the links. And the link to my social media, Twitter specifically, since that's the one I'm most active on. That is also in the description and the pinned comment. Right then, folks, that's about it for this one. Incredible episode, and it's just set up everything nicely for the rest of the season, essentially. So I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited to actually get to the next episode and see the aftermath of this, right? Really excited. So thank you for joining me once again. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again soon. So until then, take it easy.